I think a lot has been said. Professor Chacha Naigoti Chacha was here and he talked about Moi and the education system. And interestingly, I grew up in Nandi County and I encountered Moi in public rallies at a very close level. And when I was in campus, I decided to go back to where I grew up in Nandi, and that's where I met Moi close, because he was fond of schools, so he came to one of the schools that he had supported, Kapsabet Girls. And we used to have these Nyayo dinners with at that time was a former president, with President Moi. And it was very interesting to just have a conversation and be close with President Moi in one of these Nyayo dinners that I experienced. And one thing I realized that he had this aura of power around him, and he was a very approachable man, even with that aura of power. And the support he gave to schools, I think there is a Moi school almost everywhere. Where I come from in Migori County, I think the biggest one is Moi Nyaboanse, and then there is Moi Suba. So my encounter with him was in the academic realm, and it's interesting that I'm also in that field. So I would say that it was just interesting that I met him within the environment that he supported. I remember him for so many things. I wouldn't want to mention the milk and Maziwa Nya, because everyone has mentioned that. Yes. But I think he valued education. I would say that Moi really valued education. He would take his time to visit schools. I had another sister who was at Kipsigis Girls, and I think the stories we got from Kipsigis Girls and the encounter they had with Moi, it was almost everywhere. And I think it's something that Kenyans really appreciate, the schools that he built and he supported. That
you are in the field of education right now, are there things you would appreciate that, he set a foundation as far as education in this country is concerned that we are still experiencing right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that is set forth for Kenyans. When I went to campus, I think it was because of the systems that he had put in place that we had an education system that is functional. I mean, the transition from high school to campus and the loan facility that we had, I think it gave most of us from very humble backgrounds an opportunity to enjoy campus life. And, that came immediately after the boom era. And because of the realization of the economy that the government was not in a position to just pay for fees and give people boom, I think the loan system that he instituted or was instituted during his time laid that foundation. And I think even in the higher education system, by the time Moi was leaving power, I think we had 6 very solid public universities. Kibaki did his bit, but I was fortunate enough to have been a beneficiary of the 6th university that was full-fledged just before he left power, Maseno University. And you could see that the foundation was there, that universities were not just sprouting like they are today, that there was a system that underpinned the emergence of universities. And you'd actually say that it has a lot to do with the fact that he was a chancellor of all these universities. And moving to other countries, I've taught in another country in Africa, Liberia, and you'd actually appreciate the education system that we have. You would, because we have a system that is functional. And if you look at this against the backdrop of what we experienced in the 1990s, immediately after the Cold War, the coming down of the Berlin Wall and the structural adjustment programs, and the fact that aid was withheld with so many conditions, I think the fact that Moi sustained the education system and made it what it is today is credit to him. And then, of course, there are schools that he built. I think some of the best schools in this country were built by President Moi. Whether it was because of his government or his own benevolence, you can actually say that he did a lot for the education system.
Okay. Dismas, personal stories. Have you met Mzee Moi any time in your childhood?
Of course I did, but let me use Esbon's entry point about education.
Education, yes.
Yeah, what majority of Kenyans do not realize, that it's because of President Moi that we have got so many Kenyans in the diaspora. Is the premium education made that so many people today in Kenya are graduates. They may not have jobs, but they're graduates. They've got bachelors, they've got masters. Like now for Owila, when he went to teach in Liberia, it's because of the Moi Foundation. So we've got people in the diaspora sending about 250 billion shillings per annum, thanks to President Moi. I decided to ignore the education sector. Maybe we wouldn't be in that place. But as a personal encounter, when I was in school, St. Mary's Yala, the president came to visit, and he used to visit us at least once a year. But I remember on this particular time when he came in, and there was a divide between upcountry boys and boys from Nairobi in terms of the kind of allowances that were given or pocket money. But during that term, 3 months, there were no social inequalities because he said that all the boys are going to be given bread every day and a blue band every day. So, we were very excited. In as much as the people from Nairobi then had no, they had no opportunity to display their resources, so it evened out, and people were very excited. So that's now when I was a kid. But when I came to Nairobi, again as a journalist, I met him a couple of times. I covered him during his business functions. And what was interesting is that President Moi was unpredictable. Even when he was doing his news conferences or having a speech, he made sure that his sentences were never complete. So every time you go to cover the president, when you go back to the newsroom, you are actually not sure of the story. You don't know what you're going to say, what you're going to write. And then you have to wait for Lee Njiru to send his facts, and then now you can pick the story from there. But something again about the President Moi, and I've had the chance of interacting with all the presidents. President Moi had a magnetic effect. If he walks into a room with or without security, and if you're in that room as a journalist or even as an ordinary Kenyan, you'd actually feel the president coming in. But you see, I'm not able to say the same about these other presidents. But for Moi, you can actually feel him coming in.
What was it about him, from your point of view? What was it about him?
Maybe because when we were born, then you go to school, the first thing you interact with is Nyayo milk.
Yes.
And is this enigma. And then when you listen to the bulletins, especially at 1 o'clock, 7 and 9, everything is about the president. And, he led Kenya with a very strong, firm hand. Something we don't realize today. Like, for instance, the squabbles we're having today between the president, his deputy, and the cabinet, that would not happen during President Moi's time. And I know there are many Kenyans who are missing that. For Moi, when you had been employed by Moi, you had to dance to his tune. If you're not dancing to his tune, then you're going to be in big trouble.
All right, we're getting back to that shortly. I want us to quickly